Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to your messages for right now. Um, I'm currently running, I didn't realize that I was running a retreat until it became a retreat, but I'm currently running a retreat which is based on a channeling circle every Sunday from a divine feminine, what I'm calling the divine feminine high council. They're just talking to me. But essentially, it's like every embodied. I mean, there are not correct words to describe this, but the best way I could speak about it is it's every embodied divine sovereign feminine being that has ever really existed in this lineage of really powerful women. And so yeah, I'm calling it it is a service circle, but service is your service to the world is literally just being yourself. That's it. Being yourself, living your destiny. That's how you serve the world in every single moment. So it's we've had two sessions already. If you would like to do it, I'll put the link in the description. I'm going to be sending an email out to everybody that's ever had a session with me ever, just so you know, maybe today or tomorrow, because I just need to find. I'm looking for 13 women, and I got I think 8 spots left, and yeah, I didn't realize it was a retreat. It's the best price I've ever given. It's £1,300. It's all around the number 13. That was how it was channeled for me, and that's for the whole year. So it's a year retreat. We have a WhatsApp group. Um, it's really for people that are really committed to their service, which is just that you're living your heart's soul-led life, that you're not conflicted. A lot of people, and I know a lot of people here, if you're watching this, you're basically doing this, so you should be here with us. um there isn't a difference between there can be difference between your kind of internal experience of yourself and your external uh, narrative self, so to speak. Like, if you work, and you can have different facets of self, but essentially there's a commitment to at least trying to live your soul path, right? um which is really just what you were born to do and be. And I'm drawn to that Joan of Arc quote, which is, I'm not afraid I was born to do this. That's the sort of attitude. It doesn't have to be aggressive, but it's just more, I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway, sort of thing. And this is just the highest sort of channeling. I don't know if they're going to come through now. Maybe. I think they're definitely part of everything that's come through now, but or in this space. But and you don't have to be part of our circle to connect with it. But I do think we're, as usual, going where nobody else can go, in this space, in this channel. So yeah, I'm just bringing that up. I didn't realize it was I mean, that, it's a circle. It's a circle, but it is a retreat. It's ongoing. It's pervasive. Like, it's very powerful messaging that really shifts and impacts your perspective for the consistently. So it's great. And you get WhatsApp. You get me direct on WhatsApp, and we have a WhatsApp group that we share on, and we record the sessions every Sunday. They're between 60 and 90 minutes, and then we have access to the recordings, and it's pretty cool. And I realize I'm going to put in some sessions. So I'm going to do that. Everybody gets a session once a quarter. So you'll get 4 sessions as well. Because I think it's good that we just sort of check in. So it's like the best value I've ever offered. I was actually told, because I always channel amounts, I was told to charge 1,300 a quarter. But I'm doing 1,300 for the year. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I just never want it to feel like it's a restriction, and I want to stay around the channeled numbers. So anyway, if that feels doable for you and that's something that you're pulled to, I'll put the link in and you can just join the group immediately. Because I feel like I can feel you, you know. I have this thing where I can feel you, and it's just like, how do we make it, you know? So I've added some value with the 4 sessions, so hopefully that will make it easier to commit, because those one-to-one sessions are really, really powerful in terms of just getting into your personal alignment, I think. So anyway, yeah, the divine, it's really a divine feminine circle. And the reason why this is going to be valuable to you, even if you don't feel like you want to do that, is because this is active for you anyway. This, you know, you're connected to this group regardless. So there's something really activated in this feminine aspect. So before, when I first started this channel, I was speaking to, I can't use the names because, I mean, I'll use the names, but they're not the names. But I was speaking to Jesus, or let's just call it the Jesus energy, and it told me that, or he told me that you know, the masculine can only really know himself because through the feminine mirror, right? And that he didn't know what it was to serve himself, or maybe even spiritually, until the feminine aspect revealed that to himself. But so there's definitely an aspect of what we've been working with here, which is it's masculine and feminine, right? It's this kind of masculine and feminine balance. What's interesting now, this focus is very much on the feminine. It's focused on the creative impulse. So when you gain access, you'll if you join us, I'll make sure you get the first 2 sessions and you can watch them, because it's a very powerful story of how this feminine voice is now kind of taking over, which is it feels kind of surprising and inevitable, which is a phrase that, oops, sorry, should have turned my phone off. A phrase that Andy and I use when you're writing a story, is that the ending should be surprising and inevitable. So it's equally surprising and kind of like, of course, you know, you go, oh, of course that's the end, but I wasn't expecting it. That's how this feels. Not like it's the end, but of course this is the next step, you know, of course it just feels so aligned. So anyway, you are connected with this group regardless. So that's the messaging here. Okay, let's see what's going on with these cards. I mean, I'm not at my desk. I'm on the floor, so be a slightly different read today, slightly different position. Okay, ready to go. A 1, a 2, and a 3. A 1, a 3, and a 2. Right. So, bottom of the deck, 3 of Swords. This actually came up in our session on Sunday. It's the end of suffering, you know, but this is also speaking to reframing this sort of martyr energy, where the original Jesus story was supposed to free us from the suffering of martyrdom, which is really that there's this suffering or sacrifice involved in following your path. So for many people, especially on this sort of twin flame relationship journey, it's been painful. And the messaging around this card is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And we really attach this sort of suffering and sacrifice to pain. And it's not to kind of be psychopathic around, oh, pain is good, and to encourage pain and suffering. It's more that transition and growth, and I've spoken about this previously in this context, in this kind of understanding, like we go to the gym, right, to build a muscle, and we have to kind of like break and stress those muscle fibers and to build them stronger. It's a challenging experience, so we can frame it as challenge. And that challenge, we don't need to suffer in the challenge. But the greater message around this is that we have been suffering in the challenge of the feminine position, but that has now shifted. And there's no, you don't need to suffer anymore. Basically, you are free. You know, we are free in this. But part of this messaging is that you know that you are, because the last few years in the work that I've been trying to do and communicate, the messaging has been around, it's over. You know, the kind of like the difficulty is over. Even though I feel like the grand scheme of things has become more challenging, as in just the world and the structures and the systems that we're kind of living within and all that sort of stuff, and it has definitely become more challenging. The actual kind of like relationship stuff is great right now, but we run the risk of running old stories and holding on to that residue of that suffering, pain, suffering, and sacrifice, and kind of like overlaying that onto current circumstances. And it's kind of saying, just be really new and in the now, and that won't kind of like resist that, to balance that essentially. Because the big message about this, and this you know, this is for you now if you're listening to this, like you just be careful not to run patterns where you have suffered in the past and overlay that onto present circumstances, because just create as you want it to be. The feminine energy is creative. It's really, really important that you go into creative space right now, where you are only thinking about and focusing on the life that works for you, no matter what that is, outside of circumstances. It doesn't mean you ignore the circumstances. It means that you leverage those circumstances. So if the circumstances seem negative, you use that as a guide for clarity about what you do want. If you don't want something, it's very clarifying about what you do want. So you want to have appreciation for the negative to find that. And then when you find the what feels good to you, what seems like a positive narrative and story about the way you want to live, that you commit to that no matter what. And, you know, personally, I'm in horrendous circumstances at the moment in terms of the systems and the structures of my life and my family. Everything is completely untethered in an extremely challenging way. I don't think it's possible. I don't think I've never been as challenged as I am in my current circumstances. But the beauty in that, and what that is and what is occurring, is just a real destruction of everything that is not ever going to work. When things get really challenging, it's an opportunity to just kind of wipe the slate clean. It can be really difficult to go in and fix problems when it seems like there are a lot of problems and a lot of issues. And it's just, anytime you give attention to a problem, even if it's in the context of a solution, it's not gonna work. You're holding the vibration, so to speak. You're holding the reality where that problem exists. So it really is a time to focus on how you want things to be. This is something that has always been through in this messaging here, especially in one-to-ones, which people find quite challenging, which is, oh, there's no problem here. Just, you know, enjoy yourself, have a good time. Don't ignore the problems. And it's not about pretending things don't exist. It's not about spiritual bypassing. It's not about resisting reality. It's about being in reality and focusing where you want to go. It's about that GPS system where, okay, I know where I am. I'm not pretending this isn't happening, but I also know where I want to go. So I'm going to put that into my GPS, and life is going to take me there. That is just how you got to approach it right now. And the relationship to this sort of masculine piece is the masculine is really the solid. The feminine is in this kind of, in the session on Sunday, it was plasma. Plasma came up. I didn't really know what plasma was, and I had to kind of look up what plasma was. Is that the feminine is kind of the plasma, and then the masculine is the manifested. But plasma is 99.9% of everything. So the feminine is really the everything. really the unseen and the unknown, the anti-matter, you know, this is way more of what exists than the physically, what is physically represented or physically manifested. But that is the masculine piece. So when you're dealing with this feminine and masculine forces, the masculine piece is the reality, but it's what has already been created by that feminine power and the feminine mass, which is 99.9%. So when you connect with that 99.9% and you are in your feminine creative power, it seems kind of like that. It is in what doesn't exist yet, because you're creating that existence. If you focus on the masculine, which is just what has manifested, and try to resist that or change that, or that will never work. So, you know, none of this is really new, but it's shifted from 50-50 to 99.9% and 0.01%. So all the power is in your hands. And that's really what I want to gift you now, is that all the power is in your hands. And if there's one message, you know, you've gotten this far through the video, you're supposed to be here, that's what you really need to know. The power is in your hands. Everything I'm sharing here is about getting the power into your hands. You knowing, you acknowledging and being conscious of the fact that you have all the power. If there's one thing just to know is that. Right, let's see what else is going on here. So let's do my new temple spread. So the 13 that I'm collecting is part of this temple spread. So it's like 12. Actually, this temple spread's only 8, but it's a circle of 12 with the 13th point in the middle, which is really just the crossover connection point. So it's all about circles. It's all about clocks. It's all about temples. It's all about what is manifested, this masculine piece, as in time, and what seems to be happening now, but also connected to all of time, beyond time, and to that feminine aspect, which is really everything. Wow, we got some big majors here. Gosh, every card has so much to say. It just feels very like a lot's here. I don't want to give it too much. I don't want this to be too long. Right, so, you know, following on from what I'm just saying, 12 o'clock, top of the tree is the star. I mean, this is really about magic and manifestation, and again, this feminine energy, and just focusing on the world as you want it to be. This star really represents this sort of heavenly experience where you're free, you're open, you're completely yourself, you're stripped bare. This water element is extremely powerful and important as well. And then just look at those stars. You know, it's about the light that can never be dimmed. You know, the stars are out in this picture, but it's daytime, so it's kind of speaking of stars that are so bright it doesn't need to be dark to see them. You know, and that is the ultimate manifestation energy. It's not that we have to have, again, this sort of suffering and this darkness to draw out the light. We don't need the sort of yin yang dark to highlight the white circle and the white center. We're shifting, we're up leveling, so that we don't need to have such contrast in order to realize the brightness. And this is an invitation to really experience that. And this is what we are shifting into. And then the next card going round in the circle is the sun. So, you know, it's how do you do that? How do you find your light? You follow your joy. You've got to let your light lead. Everything that lights you up, lead with. And what I want to say is, the brighter your light, the more shadow you will cast. And even in the daytime, and a lot of it will cause a lot of sometimes it seems like you're creating shadow by embodying your light, by living by your light, and this is this kind of service piece. There seems to be, oh, well, I cast all these shadows by embodying my light, right? And then it seems like I create shadow. It seems like I create the negative. And if we all that is only true in an environment where people aren't shining their light, you see. So let's bring back this. If we're all shining our light, then there isn't a shadow to be cast, right? Because there's so much light that the shadow is destroyed by the amount of light that's there. So don't dim your light because just because it seems to be casting shadows. You got to behave in your integrity, and also just behave as if everybody behaved the way you behaved, what would the world be like? And I want to share how small this can be. So if you live your life by that way, like if everybody behaved the way I behave, what would the world be like? And that's kind of like your integrity. And because what you're doing then is you're making yourself vast. You're making 8 billion versions of you and then kind of seeing what the world would be like. That's like the test of how you can kind of like, you know, where you if it feels like you have a choice, that's when you want to do this. So when I was living in Mexico, I lived in this, you know, block of condos, and I used to cycle and I parked my bike, and then the front door was kind of like, yeah, I had to go round a path like this, you know, like a 90-degree, and I could just cut across the triangle, so to speak, and just walk through the kind of garden big piece to get to the door. But I was aware that if I, even though that was quicker for me and easier for me, and I have a medical condition, which means that when my heart rate is up, I kind of want to like sit down as soon as possible and get inside. I was aware that if everybody did that, then it would damage the garden, right? And so it kind of stopped me from doing that. This is one of these kind of like ways of understanding that we can't spiritually bypass if we are also kind of like thinking in the macro as well as the micro. So you have to follow your joy, but also at the same time kind of like tune into, does this make sense? And it kind of is further complicated by sometimes it might be okay to do that. And I would follow my intuition, I would follow my guidance on that. I'd be like, okay, so it feels okay now. But if I do it every single time, that's going to cause a problem. So there's no right or wrong answer because everything needs to be weighed up. But this might sound ridiculous, but this is actually where the rubber hits the road in terms of embodiment. We like it to be this sort of idea that we're kind of like floating on a cloud, or we're kind of like, this is how we're not spiritually bypassing and living this. When I'm living my life and I'm kind of like bulldozing everybody else and actually not taking others into consideration, and not taking the impacts of my actions into consideration. Because sometimes, because you don't know what the impacts are, it's not your job to decide whether you should or shouldn't do something. That comes from your guidance, your connection to I'll call it creation, which is the feminine aspect. So it's not your job to judge right or wrong in terms of your actions, but it's your job to feel into whether that impact is going to be damaging or not. And it has nothing to do with your morals or your ideas or whatever you might think that is, if that makes sense. I hope you're still with me. But it is about following your joy. Sometimes when you're so high and following your joy, you don't even need to think about that because you're so in alignment that it's sort of irrelevant. And you know, that's another aspect, and that's what I feel like the sun would kind of represent, which is where you're just so free. But notice the nakedness. It's like the star is the kind of mature sun, right? It's multiple suns. It's the integrated social sun that we're doing this all together, you know. But this naked child has grown up into this naked adult, right? And you know, you are the energy of manifestation. Everything is born from the feminine. This is really, really powerful messaging, that it's not 50-50. This is where, you know, we learn and we grow, and we not that we make mistakes, but whatever the messaging was, it used to be this kind of 50-50 thing. It's really, really not 50-50. It's like 99.9, like I said, 0.01. Feminine is we create everything. So don't even bother of course we're going to suffer if you're trying to like manipulate the 0.01% and not and living off that and wondering why you don't feel empowered, right? Because all the power is in this feminine position. And I there's a little bit in me that's like, I'm sorry I kind of missed this, but I'm also aware that this is the time when we're supposed to know this, and everything is always in its right time, right? So 4 of Cups, don't miss out on the opportunities that are just kind of all around you. There's a nuance, there's a really sensitive sensitivity to where these opportunities are coming from. And it's opportunities to receive love, which is really just flow. It doesn't have to be, I mean, almost love is kind of like the wrong word. It's more, let's call it generosity, right? So it's like, don't miss out on these opportunities to receive generosity, because they're going to be from like these small little places where you might not even notice. This 4 does speak a little bit to this sort of historical heartbreak scenario around the masculine energy, which is the masculine. Now I'm speaking, when I speak of the masculine, it's talking about what is manifested, sort of like the manifested reality. It's kind of like, I'm not, this manifested reality isn't how I want it to be. So it's kind of saying, eke out the appreciation that you can have for that. So, but it's going to be in kind of strange places where you might not have thought, you know, kind of like just behind your shoulder. So just be aware and look for and have your eyes open for things coming just behind your shoulder. Next is 9 of Swords. This is very simple. It's basically just saying, and this happened to me last night, that if you're kind of like waking up in the middle of the night, or you're going to sleep, or there's some sort of nighttime experience, it's going to feel like overwhelming. And don't worry about that. I had it last night where I just suddenly was awake. It wasn't that late, but I wasn't, you know, it wasn't like I was struggling to go to sleep. I just felt like there was this sort of like overwhelm with thoughts, you know, like thoughts, and it's just part of the creative process, I think. But it's also just kind of, again, like what happens when we're focusing on what already has been. It's kind of like the past. Well, this exists, and this exists, and this exists, and this thing, and this thing, and this problem, and this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. I don't know whether it's an astrological thing, because I do pick up on astrological, or we can understand these sort of energies through astrology. But it feels like it's a kind of thing right now that's happening, where at night you're just going to have these thoughts, and just don't worry about it. Try and go to sleep, do what feels good, try and, you know, there's another thing. So you can also, when you feel like you're overrun by thoughts, if you have the capacity to do this, I'm very lucky that I developed this skill of automatic writing, which really opened myself up as a kind of like to speak and sort of channel in this way. Is just to, when you feel like your thoughts are disconnected from what you want, and you feel like you need guidance, or a way to get out of it basically is to just sort of channel, just blank piece of paper and pen, and just the answers will kind of like come to you. Ask for the answers. But what happens to me more is like, it's not like I get the answers, I just get direction of like, you don't need to think about this isn't important, you know, just these sort of messages that I'm giving you just will kind of come through. So it's actually an opportunity to have clarity about what you want and what you don't want. And this is coming out in the next card, which is in the 6 o'clock position, the south position to the north position of the star, which is, then you're going to know exactly what is for you and what is not for you. All this sort of anxiety or thoughts or you know, clashes with reality. This is what this is. These are all clashes with reality. They're just to really focus upon what you really want and what you need to go for. So take that action. Take that action of like what you really want and what you want to go for. All the stuff that isn't working is just clarifying who you are and where you need to go. This is what this circle I'm doing is about. It seems so simple. It kind of, again, all the best things I ever do happen accidentally, and I didn't really know what it was, but it really is about just, I'm here to cheerlead you when it gets hard, to just go out and do what you're supposed to do, or be who you're supposed to be. And I'll tell you, for most of you guys, most women especially, it's actually not doing. It's more like, don't do anything, don't fix, Don't try, don't actually do, just focus. The only doing you're doing is focusing on the self that you want to be living in this moment and just being her. Like the one that is supported, the one that is completely loved, the one that is in heaven, the one that is winning, the one that has everything around her that she could possibly desire. And she is so active, but she just doesn't get your attention. And this is all about, okay, I'm going to draw your attention to this self because I only know that self. That's the only self that I work with here. That's the only self I'm speaking to. This is the only self. So the more time and effort and energy and kind of like, reining yourself in you can get, and help you can get with just, patting you into line in terms of this is who you are and this is where you should be focusing. And it's in your ease, in your flow, in your joy, in your knowing. Any help you can get, to do that, anything that helps you to do that, just invest in people, places, spaces, ideas, music, whatever it is, whatever's going to get you in that moment. Just utilize those gifts and invest in those people, time, spaces, ideas that are really aligned with your, I just call it your heart. I feel like we need a name for like the heart and the soul. It's like the solar plexus and the heart as one. It's like the whole center section of your, the body section of your beingness. That's what's driving in your physical life. That just feels completely in. With this, there's no resistance. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in this. This is the core of embodiment. I'm here and I'm present. My body is here. Not just this, not my ideas, but my body is present. 6 of Cups, soulmate connections. This is kind of related to this 4. It's like every single, you want to feel like every single human you interact with is a soulmate. And that is what you will get if you do this. And to begin with, though, it might just feel like, oh, this isn't my person. This isn't my person. This isn't my place. This isn't my space. This isn't where I should be. And this can lead to this sort of overwhelm. Like there's resistance here. There's resistance here. There's resistance here. Like this, may feel at the beginning like this is not my person. And I mean every single human you're interacting with, but at the same time, everything is that spectrum. So the contrast will, the contrast will increase potentially, but it's just guiding you back to soulmate, so to speak. And I have to say, it's challenging with these soul connections, and not just romantic ones, because it's the only place where I live is in these really high vibe connections. And a lot of people just are really afraid to live in that high frequency. And I'm aware that a lot of my issues in the day to day is because I'm like knee deep in creation, in so many ways. But because I chose to connect to kind of like, in order that I could serve better in this space, I was kind of aware that there was such a distance between where I was living and vibrating and the people that I was talking to. And not in a judgmental way. It was just like I didn't have enough experience of challenge in every single spectrum of experience of being a human woman, that I knew that in order, it wasn't just about that. It was also my personal journey. But I was aware that I deliberately lowered my vibration, basically, so that I could have a shittier experience, so that I could grow, clarify, create, really go into the most creative high vibration experience at the same time. So this is kind of what you have to understand is when you dive deep into a negative experience, you create the equal and opposite positively. And so I feel like I've kind of got a little bit lost here, but it's basically that a lot of soul connections, there's still resistance around it. I do think it's easing up. I think this is kind of speaking to, oh, these soul connections are going to be getting easier now. But I do want to say that it seems like everything gets kind of harder, or there's some more distance between you and your soul mates. And I mean, it doesn't matter what you kind of call them, but just like people that you unconditionally love, and this, your soul friends, your soul family, whatever, that it might feel like the distance is kind of more intense, but this is part of coming together. It's this kind of like, it's always darkest the dawn sort of thing. So we are in this transition phase where we've got to get a hold of how powerful we are as creators and how powerful the feminine is. As the creator, we are the creators. I mean, this is so strange, but it's like, it's so insane. From this session that we did on the Divine Feminine High Council retreat on Sunday, when it kind of came through that the feminine is 99.9% of reality and the masculine is 0.01%, essentially. Everything sort of fell into place. Like, what have we been doing? No matter, I can't, of course, nothing's working because we haven't understood reality. And it was like, wow, now I get it. So you have all the power, you are the power. But if you don't know you are the power, it's like you have this sort of like massive generator and you're doing it anyway. But we're kind of regurgitating the awful stuff that we don't want. We're just kind of like manifesting by default, right? And also just, not understanding that we have the power to, do everything. And I get that it can feel overwhelming. It's not that these swords aren't around, but it is there for clarity and to take you to your soul connections across all time. Page of Cups is like, again, this is this service piece. It's like, be yourself, be generous and loving to yourself. But in this circle temple spread, he's kind of looking outward. He's taking it outward. So it's again kind of like, put yourself in positions and scenarios and around people where it's easy to love them, because then you really love yourself. You love yourself by loving others, and so if you're not around people that are easy to love, you're not going to feel self-love. So it's something about making that commitment to finding those people that you really feel connected to and with, so that you can just love them easily, give them, be generous. I mean, this is what I've wanted my whole life. I'm kind of like a dodo, that I trust everybody, and I don't. It's extremely challenging for me to exist in the world because I'm so naive and. Like I'm of course a human with every single aspect of being human and every single emotion and every single imperfection. But I'm very loving, very easily loving. I just genuinely just want to love everyone and cannot believe that other people don't just want to love me. I'm like, well, why don't you love me? That's mental to me, but they don't. And then it's like, well, I'm getting this wrong because this isn't the way reality works, right? So, but then it's kind of like, oh, that's all undone now. This is kind of what I was speaking to. Like, we can't regurgitate the past. It is time for you to just find people that you can love and go to those people where you can love and they're going to love you back. But that's not why you're doing it. That's why it's service. But it's that service that serves you because you get to love, right? So you just want to, find those people. And then the love comes back because after that Page of Cups, Knight of Cups coming in. So it's basically saying the more you can find easy ways to love people, to be generous, find those people that you can love, it's going to come back tenfold, 100-fold. And I want to invite me to be that person and my kids. It's like, if you want to do this retreat, honestly, like if you want to love me, I will love you back tenfold, right? I'm already here doing it. It's just you may not be receiving it as much as you can, right? So I want to invite you to do that, as well here. I promise you. It's not even that I'm special in any way. It's like, that's the way it works. That's the exchange. It's like, if you really invest in an easy way, in a loving way, in a generous way, as a gift, as a donation, right? Your time, your love, your attention, your faith, your gifts, yourself. And you go, here, I'm going to make this as a donation to you because you're easy to love. you know. Maybe I'm not easy, you know, maybe I'm not one of those people that's like easy to love. And definitely I don't necessarily experience myself as easy to love, because I'm kind of a bit of a taskmaster when it comes to, oh, I'm channeling these kind of taskmasters, I feel, in terms of like, let's just, you know, live in heaven on earth, right? So maybe that's what you want to love. You want to love heaven. You want to love the highest. You want to love the best. You want to like, I'm going to love the highest and best in humanity. And I'm going to commit to that, you know? The messaging here is like, it's going to come back to you tenfold. It's going to come back to you 100-fold. You know, you give this page, and then this night comes back with like, oh, I'm going to like fill you up, you know, and then that's what takes you into this star. We end up back, you know, back at the star. So this is quite hard to sort of sum up, but basically it's really kind of, you know, what we're speaking to is, again, this masculine feminine force. The feminine is 99.9%. Like, we've been completely disempowering ourselves. Sorry, it seems like this is a bit late, but it's not. This is just the beginning, right? We've had a 10-year, this channel, you know, is 10 years old. We've had over 10 years old. We've had a 10-year run up, and now we're just beginning, because this is our time. This is the feminine time. Look at the mess that the masculine energy, and masculine is just manifested, right? What is manifested. And it's why the men have all the power, right? It seems that way in the manifested world. It's because they are the manifested, that's their job. But their job is to serve the feminine creator, right? We are the creators. So they are our tool. They are a tool for the feminine, right? But if you're just focusing on that 0.01%, you're going to feel disempowered. And you are disempowered. The feminine is disempowered if her whole world becomes that 0.01%. When you open up to this and you contextualize it right, understand it correctly, that it's 99.9%, you have all the power. We have all the power. We just don't know it, and we're not taking it. So that's why you have to ignore to the most extent, if that makes grammatical sense, ignore reality mostly. That's not what is happening right now, right? Ignore anything that is past, which is most things, and just be present in reality and take action and make choices in presence. That's how you're living in the feminine. It's the feminine piece. That's why it's the most powerful, right? That's why you can't really have masculine, genuine masculine. You can have masculine spiritual teachers, but they seem feminine, if that makes sense, right? Because in order to speak from that place, it's this unseen space. It's almost, as soon as it becomes spoken, as soon as it becomes manifested, it's kind of lost, right? Which is why the wordless unknown is the most powerful space. It's creation itself. It is God, right? And so are you. That's you. And it's time for us to take a hold of this feminine power, okay? This is maybe the most important message. I mean, of course, everyone is the most important message, but it is. This is the most important message that's ever been, you know, that life has ever used this channel for. So that's what I'll title it. All right, then. We're all done. Namaste. Namasko. Love you all. Speak to you soon. And link, if you want to be part of, and you are part of this, you know, you want to get you're part of the group. You want to do the retreat, which I didn't even know was a retreat, but it just is. Please join us, because as I experience it, those people are already there, like in the way you experience your life, and you know that these people are connected to you, but you don't. I don't know who they are, and some of you I kind of do know who you are, but it's like, just find it. And if it seems like it's impossible, there'll be a way to do it. You know, find a way. You know, use everything that's come in this session to get there, to make it happen, or to make it happen. But if it's for you, you will have it. There's no barrier. And everything that is for you, there could be no barrier to you. So if you feel like, oh, I would like to do that, but there's a barrier, that's just not true. You just don't want to do it. So just make sure that you're operating that way with everything. There are no barriers to what you want. So either you don't really want it or you do want it and you're believing a lie, that barrier is a lie. I would say for most people, 99.9, for most people, it's actually more that barrier is a lie and you do want it, because what's not to want, right? You're here. So you got to apply this to everything. There are no barriers to who you are. There are no barriers to what you want. There are no they are an illusion. Okay, I promise you that. So just play with that if it wherever it manifests, and just start small first. Be like, oh, how about this could happen? Just it's really about being open to miracles. I promise you, miracles are real. I promise you, miracles are real. Not only are miracles real, miracles are 99.9% of life. Okay, you are a miracle. So if you don't believe in miracles, you don't believe in yourself. So live in the miracle, okay? And then you live in yourself. Right now, really. Namaste. Namaskar. Love you.